Hello everyone and welcome back to Cooking with Suzanne. So today we're going to make a corned beef. What I have here is a pot with some cold water in it, and I have a nice piece of corned beef right here. It's a little under 3 pounds, and you can see that there's a nice layer of fat, and after it cooks we will remove the fat, and then we're going to put a delicious glaze on it. So what you want to do is rinse your corned beef and put it into your pot of cold water, and then you only have a few ingredients to add to this. So I have here some Dijon mustard, and the flavor of Dijon mustard with corned beef is perfect. Here's 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard that's just going to go right into the water. So I have here some cherry peppercorns, which I'm going to use, so a small little handful, and 2 bay leaves, and you do want to start with cold water. So here are 2 bay leaves that's going to go in, and you want to start this on high, bring it to a boil, and then you want to simmer this very slowly. If you boil it too hard, then your corned beef will become tough, and you want your corned beef to be super tender and delicious. This is going to take about 2.5 to 3 hours. And what you want to do is take a fork and pierce the meat, and that fork should come out very easily. That's when you know that your corned beef is done. We're going to make a nice glaze, and when it comes out, we'll remove the fat, and then we will brush it with the glaze and put it in a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes so it gets nice and glossy and has a beautiful crust on the outside. It's just delicious, and it's only 2 ingredients, which makes this so easy to make. 1/3 cup of brown sugar, and then you want to take about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. If you need more, you'll know, because all we're going to do is just mix this together, and that's all there is to this glaze. Nice and smooth. Let me come up front so you can see it. You can see how it runs, which is perfect. It's what you're looking for. Today I'm going to make a nice tart, or a torte really. It's kind of like a gratin, but there is no cream or even really stock in it. It's really just layered vegetables with a little bit of bacon. So the vegetables that I'm using is a beautiful Savoy cabbage, a half a head, which I'm going to shred and put in boiling salted water for 2 minutes. Then rinse it under cool water, set it on a tray with paper towel to let it dry. Okay, so Savoy cabbage. You need a nice floury potato, so we're using russet baking potatoes. I have 2 large ones here. I think this should be enough. We shall see. I do have extra if we need more. And I'm using Kerrygold cheddar cheese, the reserve cheddar. You need about, I'm going to say about 7 ounces, 7-8 ounces of cheese. And it's the cheese is going to go in between each layer, which is what makes each layer adhere to one another. And then it becomes a torte. Okay, so I have here, this is exactly 7 ounces, so I think this will be enough. I also have a nice piece of onion that I'm going to slice, and carrots. I have some beautiful bacon here, and you can use as much or as little as you want. I would say 4 ounces would be fine. You can go up to 8 ounces if you want, but just enough to give that little bit of flavor. So those are our ingredients. I'm just going to get a little bit of prep done here, and then we are going to go ahead and make our torte. I have a few things going on here. I think I'm pretty much prepped other than the cabbage, but the first step that we want to get done here are our onion and carrots. I have here about 1/4 cup of chicken stock. So the first thing we want to do, by the way, our corned beef is getting very close to coming to a rolling boil, so that's when we will turn it down to a simmer. I also have some water boiling that I will need to salt for us to blanch our cabbage. And we also have this step, which is the onion and carrot. So I'm just going to take out the core and slice the onion fairly thin. So here are our onions. Let me just grab some extra virgin olive oil. I have a pan heating up. Here we go. What you want to do is cut this in half and then cut it in half lengthwise. You can go ahead and slice away. I'm just going to slice a little bit on the diagonal. It's about a cup of carrots here. And I'm going to add the carrots to the onion. And then I'll add a little bit of stock. I think now would be a good time to go ahead and add our carrots. And then we'll cover this and we'll let this cook. We'll check it in about 5 minutes. This could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, but you do want the carrots to be completely cooked. Okay, and once again, we can go ahead and take a little bit of kosher salt and salt the carrots just with a little pinch of salt. And my stock is unsalted, so I'm not adding more, but if your stock is salted, you might not need to add any at all. So here, I'm going to go in. I'm going to cover that and put it on low and let our onions and carrots do their own thing. I explained to you that we were going to slice the bacon in, long pieces. In French, they're called lardons. By the way, this is the Kerrygold cheddar cheese that I grated. So that was the 7 ounces. I grated the full amount. I have a saute pan and I have just a little bit of melted butter. And even though we're going to get some fat from the bacon, you need a little bit of butter in the pan as well, because that is the fat that we're going to use to toss the potatoes in. So let's just take, I only did about 4 ounces of bacon. We're only going to use about half of this cabbage. Just going to show everybody how our carrots, you see the steam coming through, so we're kind of steaming them. You can see with the cabbage you have a core here that you want to remove. So you just want to get a flat surface and go ahead and just slice this. Just nice and thin. So I have a half a head of cabbage. Now I do need to salt the water. I never salt it until I'm actually ready to blanch. So now I'll go ahead and put in our cabbage. Here we go. This looks great. I just have a strainer and a spider here that I'm just going to remove the cabbage. Our cabbage is nice and cool. It is no longer hot. So let's just put it on this tray lined with paper towel. There we go. Just grab some extra paper towel to put on top of our cabbage so that it can dry nicely. All right, let me just set this aside for now. So our next step is our potato. You need to slice your potato thin, about an 1/8 inch thick. I have a mandolin here, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it just because it makes my job a little easier, but it's easy to slice by hand too. You don't need a mandolin to do this. I have my potatoes already peeled sitting in cold water. I'm just going to remove it from the water. Dry your potato so that it doesn't slide around on you. Let's see what we have here. All right. So here's our potato slices. We'll do one more and then we can assemble this dish. I have a round baking dish here which I put a piece of parchment paper in the bottom because we're going to flip it when it comes out of the oven. So that's just so that none of the potatoes stick at the bottom. Season the potato slices. So black pepper. A little bit of kosher salt. Potatoes need salt, of course, you know that. I am preheating my oven to 400 degrees. Now you just want to toss this. We're going to add the fat to it too. which will help to disperse the seasoning. Okay, so what we want to do is take our cabbage into a bowl now that it's all been dried out. I mean, there's still moisture on the cabbage, obviously, but the paper towel is quite wet, so we definitely got a lot out of it. Okay, and we're going to add our bacon to the cabbage. It's nice and brown, as you can see. There we go. So let's just add our bacon, and then we'll add the fat to our potatoes. Now I'm going to just take this beautiful fat. Now toss the cabbage and the bacon together. Now before we assemble, it's important that everything has been seasoned properly. Our carrots and onions have been seasoned while they were cooking. I've already added some salt and pepper to our potatoes, and there was salt in the water that I blanched our cabbage in, and also the bacon has salt. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black pepper, and of course our cheese has salt, so I think we have everything covered. Now let me just toss our potatoes in with our bacon, fat, and butter. So you just want to first layer the bottom with your potatoes, and I'm overlapping it a little bit. So here we have our first layer of potatoes, and then we're going to put a little bit of cheese, just a light sprinkle. You don't need to go heavy on it. And now let's put a layer of our cabbage and bacon. A little bit of cheese. And then we'll do our carrots and onion. And you just want to, this is something that's easier to do with your hands than it is to use any other tool. So as long as you have good clean hands, there's no reason for you not to do it this way. So I have some carrots and onions, which look great. Now let's do a little bit of cheese. And then we will start with the potato again. Once again, we're going to overlap the potato slices, and they're about an 1/8 inch thick. Go. Now we want to top it with some cheese. Then we will go ahead with the cabbage and the bacon. A little more cheese. And I have my oven set at 400 degrees. So now we can finish with all of our carrots and onion. And then a little more cheese on the top. I just want to show this to you real quick before I put the final layer of potatoes. And now we'll put our final layer of potato on top. You just want to press on it a little bit for it to all adhere. Okay? And then there's just a tiny bit left of cheese, and I think we should use it. So let's just sprinkle the top with the rest of the cheese. Here it is, complete. I want to first cover it with a little piece of parchment paper, and that's just so that none of the vegetables stick to the foil, because I am going to cover this with a piece of foil. So I have a little piece of parchment paper right on the top, and now I'll put a piece of foil, 400 degrees, and then I'll start checking it in about 45 minutes. The potatoes are completely done, and I'm going to attempt to invert it and see how it looks. So let's take a look. It's room temperature at this point. I let it sit for about 30 minutes. So now it's room temperature, and I think because we have the parchment paper on it, it makes it very, very easy to be able to remove, which it did. And let me come over. So there's the bottom, and that's actually going to be our top. And I've said this several times, but I am a big fan of using the electric knife. And I think in this instance, it's perfect as well. So I'm just going to cut it in half. Absolutely gorgeous. Here's 2 slices, which I would totally put in the oven to warm up. And you know, at this point, I would certainly leave it at 400 degrees. It's not going to take much longer. You see how well it has totally adhered every layer to each other? Can you see that? Look how gorgeous that looks. It looks so good. So here is, oh yes, this looks wonderful. I'm going to put it the fat side up because we want to remove the fat. So it's important to remove it, which is what I'm doing right here. Quite a bit of fat on this layer. Let's take this off. And then I kind of scrape it and take the rest of it off. So I just have a small sheet pan that I lined with a piece of foil, and I sprayed it with a little bit of Pam. And the reason for that is because the brown sugar and mustard does burn, and you definitely don't want it to have to clean it on your tray. So let's take our beautiful piece of corned beef, and now we want to brush it with our brown sugar and mustard at 400 degrees for 20 minutes till it has a beautiful glaze. And look at this beautiful glaze. It's really nice. So let's just brush it on. And this was probably the most favorite dish that I made, that our son loved. And he truly loved this corned beef dish. So this is in honor of Tim. Okay, here we go. I'm brushing the sides all over. It's going at 400 degrees for 20 minutes, and then we'll be ready to slice it and enjoy it. Okay, so I just pulled out the corned beef, and you can see how dark it is on the foil. So that's the reason why you definitely want to line your tray with foil so it doesn't burn like that. This morning, I also cooked an Irish soda bread, which I already did in a video. Look up Irish soda bread for Cooking with Suzanne Fine Regional Cuisine. You will see this recipe, which is so good. So let me go ahead. Again, I'm going to use my electric knife for this. Let's plate this up. We'll put a little bit of mustard on the plate. We have the gratin, and we have a wonderful slice of Irish soda bread. Here is our beautiful torte, which has cabbage, bacon, carrots, potato. We have wonderful seeded mustard. We have our beautiful, beautiful corned beef, and a lovely slice of Irish soda bread.